I'm not doing this for you, for the grade, to be different, to be a social warrior. I'm doing this for me. Let me rephrase that. I'm doing this for the little girl who didn't understand why she wasn't represented on screen. And before I get ahead of myself, let me give you some context. Hi, it's lovely to meet you all. I'm Sophia, and I'm disabled. And I have been since the age of 18 months when I had a brain injury. And that's probably the bluntest introduction you'll ever get. So I do apologise for my bluntness throughout this documentary. I am autistic. But moving on, shall we? I'm now a young disabled creative artist at the age of 18, and I wanted to understand how disability is represented on and off screen in the industry. My first interview of the documentary is Jack Hayes. He's currently a video and moving image student at college, and he will be providing the viewpoint of a disabled creative starting his journey into the professional industry. Do you think you will be / have been underestimated because you are in a wheelchair?
I think that I definitely have felt like being underestimated by people. I definitely have felt a bit of an outcast in society because of being in a wheelchair. But I kind of take that in my stride, and it's kind of like, you know what, if people are going to just treat me like that, then you know what, they don't deserve my time.
That is a brilliant mindset, and I think a lot more people need to adopt that. Okay, so next question. What was it like watching TV and films growing up? Did you see yourself represented on screen? And do you think that has a knock-on effect to your attitudes today? If so, why and how?
When I was younger, kind of disability representation really wasn't a thing on TV and film. And so I think that's made me kind of amplified my mindset, if you will, to be able to kind of show that to other people and be able to present what I can on stage, but also in my own products that I make as a media creator.
You and I are both this very similar, because I also do this for myself.
Exactly, and I think that's how you've got to do it.
Yeah.
You've got to do it for yourself because you want to believe in yourself to be able to kind of have that potential.
Yes, definitely. Okay, next question. Do you think disability representation on screen is where it should be today? If not, how do you think the industry can be better?
I think that disability representation has definitely got better over the years, especially if you look over the past kind of decade. But I think there's still some room to grow, and I think that disabled people have still got a gap on screen that needs to be shown. And so I think there's room for that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think watching TV, you know, some of it's coming up. Like, for example, autism. There's
a lot on that in a minute.
Yeah, there's quite a lot. Do you think disability representation on screen has influenced the way able-bodied people view disability?
I think definitely recently, because of that evolution on TV, it's helped people to kind of see the view of disability people, and for an able-bodied audience have been able to kind of connect with that disabled audience. And so, for example, like Rosie and Ines on Strictly, that really connected a lot of people at home because of what they were seeing, and they were seeing an insight into her world and what that she had to go through every day.
I completely agree, and I can't remember for fact, but I definitely think there were some news articles going there's been an uptake in BSL, British Sign Language.
It was a massive thing, and it was also shown in lots of Google searches as well, so that's research that it really did impact the audience at home, and they were wanting to, you know, take a stand with the disabled community and be like, okay, this is something that needs to be kind of incorporated into my life, and it then helped people understand disabled people's lives.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to push the disabled narrative a lot more. If one isolated incident did that, what would
could everything do?
Precisely.
Exactly, if that evolution keeps growing, that will happen.
Yes. I can't wait until it becomes normal to see a disabled person on TV.
And lots of disability.
like, it would just be any other character, and I won't go, oh my god, there's a disabled person on TV.
I'm so excited. Like,
I have to watch the series. You know, I think us being so positive, but also understanding the facts as young creatives will really help and push what needs to be pushed in the industry when we get to it.
It helps to teach people as well.
Yeah, I definitely think education is one of the main things we need to improve on.
Absolutely.
Up next is Phil Hawkins. He is an award-winning feature film and commercials director. You may recognise him as the director from Star Wars Origins, a fan fiction film from 2019, which Mark Hamill dubbed as an epic masterpiece. Phil will be providing the viewpoint from a non-disabled professional about disabled professionals in the industry and how he thinks that the industry has changed and evolved throughout his time as a professional. Have you seen any positive changes in the industry surrounding disability and inclusion in the industry since you began your career? And if so, could you please give me a couple examples?
The thing is, for me, is like, I'm sure I've worked with lots of people that have disabilities, but they're not kind of visible in inverted commas, and you don't ask, you just get on with the job. I know there's a few producers and things that have disability that I have worked with recently over the past few years. Again, it's to me, it's not a point, it's not a, it doesn't raise an eyebrow. It's just everyone's, as long as everyone's good at their job, that's all that matters, and that's all that should matter. So I think that is that's great in terms of that, and I think in generally, like, and I get it, someone that isn't disabled. I mean, my little brother has disability, and he'll need a carer for all of his life, so I see the world for him, and I also see, and I'm again, Mr. Optimist, I feel that, like, hopefully the workplace and the world itself is more open to it and is more able to provide for disability, to allow people to do their jobs, and I feel like I've seen that. I mean,
so Phil, on your emails and when we met in person, you said how important it was to have people behind the camera, and I thought I would like to give you the space to expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's important to represent disability, the world, in terms of people on set, because again, it's a different viewpoint. Me as a director, when I'm trying to create, a world, as it were, or create reality or truth on a situation in a very artificial environment, as we've said, you've got hundreds of people behind in front of the camera trying to make this thing work. Is that, like, I want to hear as many viewpoints, as possible to make that authentic. So, and again, I mean, I know I certainly have worked with crew that have disability, and maybe I'm kind of blind to it because I don't see it as an issue. Again, as long as you can do your job, that's all that matters, but yeah, I mean, again, that shouldn't be a barrier to entry. I'd hope that you wouldn't be trying to do a job role that was very, very, very physical if you weren't able to do that, and that's just sort of common sense. I don't feel that is negative. I just think there's a lot of things in terms of safety on a set that you have to be concerned about. But there's many other roles which, many roles that anyone can do. And again, it's important to make sure that people are coming through the trainee schemes and being given these opportunities in order to grow as a professional within the industry, regardless of disability, regardless of anything, but as we're talking about disability, and then we need to also enable that.
Jon Furlong completes my trio of interviews. He is an actor who has been on a multitude of different projects, including but not limited to Channel 5's All Creatures Great and Small, Netflix's The Last Kingdom, and he has also performed on stage in Cyrano de Bergerac with James McAvoy. I do apologise if I have murdered that pronunciation, the likelihood is very high. He also happens to have scoliosis and will be providing the viewpoint of a disabled creative professional in front of the camera. Okay, so during your career, have you seen improvements in disability representation and inclusion within the industry? If so, how and why?
Well, I'll start by saying that yes, when I was first started, there was no disability representation. So it was a particularly set to a low bar. So it wasn't difficult to get to a higher standard than what it was. There's no access. You were seen as too expensive. Flight risks, all those kind of things, and particularly if you had a physical disability, you just didn't look right.
You said some not very nice things about yourself. Would you say you've heard that kind of thing in the industry? You've experienced that kind of ableism?
Yeah, I've experienced it. So if it's being too expensive, to give an example, if you're in a wheelchair and the industry was never set up to have a ramp to get you into the studio. That, therefore, probably costs you a couple of £1,000 minimum just to get you in the building. So you need toilets, you need everywhere to be accessible, and you need all those kind of things.
Okay, next question. Have you found that there are a lot of disabled actors out there?
Again, in my early experience, no. As I've kind of got into it, and as I've kind of got more and more into the industry, and particularly we are more open to disability being within the industry, yes, I have found that. In terms of having something go, there's it like where, say, a disabled person can sit in the cinema and go, hey, there's me, I'm represented. That never happened when I was a kid. And it still really doesn't. Like, let's be honest, we're going now. It does. I was about to say, not much has changed. Yeah, not much has changed, but people are trying now.
Yeah, and I think what we saw with Black Lives Matter and how quick the turnaround was from that, for like, in my uneducated perspective, on like TV shows and like things like that, that was kind of like a line post and before kind of thing. Like there was an active change, and I think that was purely because of the social movement and how spotlighted it was.
Yeah, and I think I agree. There's kind of parallels with that. LGBTQ. There's a lot of stuff on that. Gender. There's a lot of stuff on that. Racism. There's a lot of stuff on that. People are not quite ready to fully embrace kind of there is an issue with disability in the same sense. You and I.
No, I completely agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had weird comments and like questionable things being said. So like one of my classmates in this room, there's like really bad chairs, and there's this one comfy chair, so I took it, and he was like, oh, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm taking the chair, so I have cerebral palsy and I need it to support my back. He was like, oh, I don't care, and kind of was like just in a massive huff, and I was like, if you bothered to listen to my story and educate yourself, then you might. But
that's I mean, now you go with Black Lives Matter, people are going, we don't educate people in the way that they need to know, so they understand where they're being racist. We are as a society, we haven't been taught how do we make the world better so ableism doesn't happen. What I've been told is kind of what I have conversations, it's like the other side are afraid to ask in the same way. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where it's like, And I've kind of come to a point where she's like, look, if you want to ask, ask. It doesn't bother me. Like, if it helps you understand and educate, ask away. Just find a moment and don't be, am I right swearing in the interview? Like, yeah, don't be a dick. We're not going to bite your head off. We're not going to cry. We're going to be quite appreciative of the fact that you've actually taken an interest and you want to help.
Moving on, same sort of question, really. Did you see yourself represented on screen growing up, and has this affected your attitudes today?
No, I didn't see myself represented when I was a kid, or when I was younger. Has it affected my attitude? Yes. I will give you an example. In the most recent show I did, which was amazing, I still carry an attitude where, sorry, my dog's barking, where I have to fight to get my moments.
My next question is, what is your opinion on able-bodied actors playing disabled roles, as in disabled from the start of the season, not like a get into an accident, get in a wheelchair, which is a very stereotypical example of this.
I know what you mean. Yeah, doesn't happen. Can't happen. For the exact reasons of what we've been doing here. We're going, hey, people feel the way I feel. So what in any way would make you think that an able-bodied person would understand the feelings of a disabled person and be able to communicate those to somebody? No. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just doesn't, like, it's that's the problem. I mean, and I've had it the other way as well, which is the worst feeling I've ever had in this industry, which is to be seen for a character with my disability and then cast someone and put prosthetics on them. That is one of the worst feelings I've ever had.
3-day what?
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of it. That's what I mean. That's when it's like, yeah. That's how it goes. And that's what I mean. So you've got to, when I talk about what I talk about with the attitudes before, it's not, people aren't ready yet. We're not got, this is a while ago. I'm talking 5-6 years ago. It wouldn't happen now, but it's still like,
Okay.
yeah.
Doesn't make it any better though, really.
Doesn't make it any better. You could still tell that story 5-6 years ago and people would be like, you know, because it's just like, yeah, it doesn't, to tell me that I don't represent me is confusing, to put it bluntly.
Throughout the production process of this documentary, I've been told time and time again that the TV and film industry is not where it should be on disability inclusion and representation. However, what hasn't come up is how the industry can change and strive for positivity. Therefore, I put that exact question to my interviewees.
Behind the camera, I think in terms of opportunity, people need to be able to give them that chance to apply for jobs such as working on a camera, such as editing, and those kind of behind the scenes kind of are not quite as appreciative, but it's still really important. And so for like on screen, I think just people need to be open, and by being open in terms of their casting, really helps people have that narrative and helps disabled people to connect to them.
I think it's important I think this is very important. I think it's important for people to see documentaries or read things like this because it's about education, you know, and I feel that, I don't know, maybe people think it's difficult. Maybe people think it's a hassle. Maybe people think, oh, well, is it safe? Is, like just kind of stupid excuses, really, that need to be kind of tackled through just education, really, I think, and for people to actually talk about it and discuss it and be open to it.
Yeah, being honest with itself, probably. Having open conversations. If I could give any advice to anybody, like with a disability, but just in like, don't look at a problem as a problem to moan about. How do we solve it? Is what I mean. Is if we all became solution focused. So, say you had I don't know how I could draw it onto yourself, but in terms of like, say there's a barrier that's stopping you. So you can put that barrier out there and the industry goes, okay, how do we solve that? They don't go, it's a problem, you can't do it. It's, how do we solve that? If we could all develop that attitude, then we can make it a much more inclusive situation for everybody, is what I would say. Otherwise, it's about education and it's about asking people to do a lot, which, again, as we've spoken about, they're probably not ready to do. But that's it. It's about listening to one another. It's about that kind of stuff. That's what I would say.
During the 6-month process of this documentary, I've learnt more than I ever could have wished for about disability representation and inclusion in the TV and film industry. I feel like I've grown a lot as a person, but more importantly as a disabled creative artist. I hope you've taken something from this documentary too, even if it's just the fact that disability does not mean disabled, it means differently abled. And that you shouldn't have to ask for permission to be your authentic self. Thank you for watching.